NEO Technologies has been pulling back from that $7.50 level since going as low as that $6. Now it's showing some strong support with the overall market. Is this a spot where the bulls can step up for the next uptrend, or are the bears going to continue this movement lower? Within this video today, we're going to get straight into that. Going first over to the weekly to get a very broad perspective, getting an accurate price prediction, the top level to watch, and much more. So, alrighty guys, we're on the weekly. Very abrupt right away. You have to keep this in mind. We've been mentioning this since these lower levels of $3, $4. We're looking at a downtrending stock. And that was the case for quite some time. But over the course of the last few months, the bulls have been stepping up with one higher low, two higher low. And it did appear we might be able to base around that $6, $7 level for the next upside before pulling back at $7.50. Now, with a very strong wide bar, you clearly are wondering, is it going to defend that last prior low? And this is the most important thing we have to keep in mind from a long-term perspective, as this is a very long-term descending channel, right? We did have a lot of different marker points at this breakout level, which we currently are testing with this very obvious descending trend line in this vicinity. We're currently trying to break and retest, right, with double tests to that level. And more importantly than that, we just want to see stock price hold over this last major hammer candle high, as we see a very reactive, explosive move from that. Notice how these hammer candles typically are the low point from a weekly analysis. We see these very thin candles, which we mentioned at that $4 level for that explosive movement. We've seen that low being placed. Once again, a very textbook hammer candle continuation for the trend to move higher. We've seen another one of those phenomenon. It did not play up to the bulls' favor. Okay, there has been a lot of overall negative news within the market, what have you. We grinded back towards these highs. Bad news hit at the breakout level. This is a very classic phenomenon. When you see stock price right at the breakout level, as pretty much the whole overall market was, and then very, very negative news happens, you can typically see a big reversion. So with that being said, this pullback, although is not the best thing to see, right? You would like this hammer candle once again to be that spot where you go to set the next higher high. We did not clearly get over that $8 level, right? Halting at $7.50. But with that being noted, as long as we hold over from a more long-term perspective over this last very important weekly candle low, we still are looking good from a long-term perspective. Keep it on that $5.60 level. Once you start breaking below that, man, that is breaking a very big measurement within that low. And not only that, you're starting to see this uptrend starting to crumble down a little bit if we do break below that level. So this is going to be a very core spot over the next few weeks. And yeah, guys, no sugarcoating this. Definitely a very key spot here from a more long-term perspective, as we are in a very long-term descending channel. It's been a very rough ride for investors, for NEO, but definitely a lot of potential here. You just need to see stock price not break 560 from the next few weeks. But with that being said, I do think there's actually some opportunity here. We're going to flip over to the daily analysis, being each one of these candles are 1 day. I haven't had the most bullish look on NEO over the course of the last few weeks, as we did see stock price grinding to that breakout level at $7.50, then seeing big negative news, breaking this very sharp ascending trend line, this ascending triangle formation, building a lot of energy and then popping. We have seen multiple red days simultaneously from that, with the overall market pulling back, but it does appear that we could see a gap fill reversion. We've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red candles in a row. Typically, when you see that within a very strong mover, which NEO is, guys, we just recovering stock price at $3.30, and we're at a pullback at $6. We're clearly seeing a very obvious gap here, with these very obvious red candles simultaneously pulling right back down to a very strong support, being $6 to that $5.90. Now showing a green candle ending that trend reversion. This is a very strong analysis for a red to green reversal, and I do believe over the course of the next 1, 2, 3, 4 days, we could see 4 green candles in a row pressing back towards that 667, towards that very obvious gap fill at 660. If we zoom in a little bit closer, you get a better image within that, guys. We have 2 gaps to fill, right? One being at this very obvious $6.60 level. Keep an eye on that, guys. Typically within these setups, you see stock price get right to that and then reverse. It's not a coincidence, guys. This happens all the time within the market. Then we see that other gap located right here. Very obvious level of test at $7.12. That is located 12 cents above that very important $7. And then you have $7.50 as a big resistance So with that being noted, there's a lot of resistance here, right? Hence this very long term, from that 690 to that 750, some very big weekly resistance, which is why it's located on the chart as a very thick red resistance. I typically don't like to, clutter chart scare guys, but on the weekly, this is a very important spot. We've seen a very important swing low from that around that 2023, coming back to visit after a big rejection after a parabolic run. Sitting at this level for about 8 weeks in a row, boom, snap and eat that. We're moving from $6 all the way down to 3. So you see how this is such a key sign, get back to that level, reject at this high. Stock price grinds all the way back with another rejection here, guys. So this is another visit back to the weekly analysis, just showing why we see this very thick red resistance. This is the number one resistance from a more long-term gauge. So you see stock price with these obvious gaps to fill, it is located in a very thick resistance. But with that being said, from the short-term perspective, we have fallen from the top of this descending trend line with that obvious fake breakout, now showing a lot of upside in the next few days. So that does appear apparent on the daily analysis. And although there is a lot of, tests from the $690, $7.50 resistance, it does appear that it can, for stock price within the next few days, to grind to 660 on a very obvious daily test. And then perhaps to that $7 market point. Okay, if stock price does get over $7, there is, once again, very heavy resistance up there, but we are seeing this bull flag continuation. Okay, now it's more or less a descending channel, as we didn't get the break over here, and now it's a very thick channel, even going deeper. But you should be going back up to test this level, and over that gap fill does open a lot of opportunity for that, delayed breakout. So as of right now, definitely not denying the long-term trend for NIO here to get the gap fill and then continue its trend higher, breaking over $7, claiming over $7.50, and a nice long-term breakout. But as of right now on the daily, it's just very clear that we will see that 660 test and a likely reversion test back to $7 as well. All right, we're on the last step in the analysis today, and this gives a very interesting image. We're seeing a very overextended downside push with very obvious sharp lower lows. This is a very unsustained movement, and we're currently getting dry right at the bottom of this descending trend line. Notice how candles are, sitting here just basic, getting very tight, very, very tight, getting thin, 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 thin. This is typically the situation, the spot, especially with this very large candle defending the support, going right to that. Boom. Now getting very, very thin. This is a lot of bullish confluence at the bottom of this very sharp descending trend line. Expect this to be broken above 628, giving that fuel to the fire to test 660. It does make so much sense from a short-term perspective to get that nice push come Monday, Tuesday, man. Definitely makes a lot of logical sense. And then after that, maybe a little bit consolidation, so testing back towards these upper levels in this very big vicinity. But once again, this is a very big, big, big weekly resistance. Hence why we've seen so much rejection here. Whoops. So much rejection here, despite a lot of very, valiant attempts to get over that $8 level and separate itself over. We'll continue to monitor where the stock price does go after getting this test, but that is the prediction on the channel, guys. Expect that more short-term test back to these big levels, and that will leave a lot of clues from a long-term gauge whether stock price will continue these lower lows and highs. If you guys found any value in the video today, consider dropping a sub and a like. We'll continue to monitor NIO stock price about 1 to 2 times per week. We have been following NIO back from these lower $3 levels on the channel. Very on the ball. We'll continue to do our best work here for you guys. Have a good one, guys. Take care, trade smart, and peace.